Hey.
You can hear that? When you're over 30, you go,
I know, my back.
Every time,
my
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 back.
eyes.
Yes.
It's like it only lasts like 2 or 3 years.
Yes.
I don't know what's going on.
It's called age.
I'm not ready for it. So this session, I mean, most people here and people listening on the streaming audience side know you from TV. I mean, you are in our homes every night.
Or the internet. Little clips, memes.
Yeah, little clips, little memes. But you are like part of the family. But I don't know that people know you. They know what you're talking about. They know the things that you cover.
Yeah.
But they don't really know about you as a person. I mean, you've had 2 great books. You have a #1 New York Times bestseller talking about racism. But I thought it would be a great opportunity to talk about you as an individual, as one of the most recognized people on TV. And when we were catching up, you said, listen, I'm not an overnight success. This is all really hard work.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got here?
A 30-year overnight sensation, right?
30 years.
Wow. So good morning, everybody. Good to see you here, especially with COVID and all masked up and vaccinated. Well, I grew up in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, as this little kid who had big teeth and pointy ears and body didn't really fit. And I had this secret that I was gay and on and on. And I came from very humble beginnings. And long story short, I went to LSU. My journalism professor told me that I would never make it as a journalist. I left Louisiana because of racism, because of the lack of opportunity. I moved to New York City with $200. I know that's an old cliche story, but it's true. I had $200, an '87 Jeep Wrangler, everything that I could fit in my '87 Jeep Wrangler. And I started working. I took a job at WNYW Fox 5 on the Upper East Side.
It was Fox. You started out at Fox.
At a Fox station. This was before Fox News Network. I saw the beginnings of the Fox News, and in some ways probably contributed to the success of Fox News, or at least the launching, I shouldn't say success, the launching of Fox News, because it was a Fox News exchange from all of the owned and operated Fox stations around the country where we would exchange news stories. This is, again, before Fox News Channel. $5 an hour as a trainee, 6-month contract as a trainee in the newsroom, making $5 an hour below the poverty level. I had lived in a sublet in Astoria, Queens for $360-some a month.
How old were you when you did all that?
And I went to school at Brooklyn College to finish my degree that I didn't finish at LSU. I was in my 20s, and I didn't actually start on air until I was almost 30. So I worked there for 5 years I started as a trainee in the newsroom, a desk assistant, a production assistant, satellite feeds coordinator, writer for the 10 p.m. news with John Rowland and Coran Mahalik, and Rosanna Scotto.
Love her.
And then I became the assignment editor, and that's how I built my tape. And then I went around the country from New York to Birmingham to St. Louis to Philadelphia, New York as a correspondent for NBC News, Chicago as a main anchor, to Atlanta for CNN, and then back here to New York. And here I am.
Amazing.
Yeah, 1991.
So, for people who are
This is my anniversary in the business. I didn't even think about that. I didn't even realize it. Yeah.
2021.
Yeah.
When people think about that journey, and you're talking about, aspiring people in media, people that potentially want to be on-air personalities, what would the advice that you'd give them when you think back about that?
For people who want to be on the air?
Yeah, or in news.
Well, look, it's 2 things, or maybe more. It's not a glamorous job. People think it's glamorous. I mean, there are some perks that you get, you walk in here and people say, oh my gosh, I watch you all the time, which is great for your ego if you're into that sort of thing. But I work a lot. I mean, I had to move closer to work on purpose because of how the business is changing with streaming and podcasts and all of that. So I need to be close to the place where I have to do business. So I had to do that. It's not, I start work in the morning with notes about, we just had our network meeting, blah, blah, blah. This is the news is available, Colin Powell, on and on and on. Colin Powell, God rest his soul, right? And so it's hard work. But my advice is always to work hard, believe in yourself, work hard, something else, work hard. Don't not be concerned of what people think about you. So I say, work hard, the cream always rises. Don't be concerned what people think about you. You have to forget about social media in the sense of the criticism. But then you can also use social media to your benefit. I would say those are the 2 things. Be ready to work your butt off
your ass off.
Can I say ass? Okay.
Yes.
Be ready to work your ass off. Be ready to not make a lot of money, especially when you're starting out. And it's tough. It's even tougher now because the networks are shrinking. Cable news networks audience is shrinking, and we're gaining audience in other places. But it's not necessarily in the traditional sense of a television audience. We have more viewers and more subscribers than ever because of these things like this. But it's not necessarily on the big box that people are used to watching things on. My microphone.
You're multi-screen.
But I think I'm fine. Yeah.
So when you think about how you got here, who
Yeah.
are the people that inspired you?
Well, I was inspired by a lot of people. I was inspired to become a television news person by a local news anchor named Jean West. She was on my television, and she looked like me. She sounded like me. It was the first representation of a black person who actually looked and sounded like my family. She was a local news anchor in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Other than when I grew up in the 70s and 80s, it was kind of dynamite, like Jimmy, J.J. Walker, that kind of thing that you would see people. I loved Jimmy, JJ, I loved Florida Evans, I loved all of that, but it wasn't necessarily representative of me. I mean, I didn't grow up in Chicago in a project. I grew up in a fairly middle-class neighborhood in a suburban street and that sort of thing. And not until the Cosby Show came on that we started to see different representations of black people on television. So Jean West was really the first person I was like, wow. And then I always, as a kid, I was always curious and asking questions all the time. And I write about it in my first book, Transparent, that I would go over to different tables at restaurants and just go talk to people. If we were at an event and I was with my mom, I would just go talk to people. And my mom would say, come back. And my dad would say, don't teach him to be afraid of people. So I was always asking questions, and I wanted to know why things worked and why things were the way they were, are the way they are. And that's what happened. That's how I became a journalist. And I stopped at first I wanted to be an attorney. My dad was an attorney. And I was like, I started off economics at LSU. I'm like, I don't want to do this. This is boring. So then I went to the journalism program, and
You'd be great in the courtroom.
Maybe that's next. Who knows? Maybe I'll become an attorney.
Well, some people have said that you were potentially going to run for politics.
People have asked me. I have never been asked over the last 5 years more to run for president. People ask me, are you going to run? You run for mayor, run for senator, but the most they always ask me, my fiance sitting in the back of the room, raise your hand, hi Tim. He's like, don't do this. Don't people ask me to run for president all the time? They're like, you have to run. I'm like, are you crazy? Who the hell wants to be president of the United States? For what? I have a great life. Like last night I walked from here in Hudson Yards to the Ricky Martin and Enrique Iglesias concert. I had the best time. People were stopping me and asking me for pictures. But can you imagine? I couldn't do that if I was president.
Never.
No, I want to go and shake your bum, or whatever with Ricky Martin. So
you could bring him to the White House.
I could bring Ricky Martin to the White House. I'll text him and tell him to come to the White House. But can you imagine Tim would be the first, I don't know, what would you call it?
First gentleman.
No, the first gusband, gay husband. That would be great. Would you guys vote for me? Don't even think about it.
Hold on. Actually, and we talked about this.
Yes, sir.
You say that the news paints you in the liberal corner.
Yes.
But you are not in the liberal corner.
I'm not.
So why don't you share a little bit about your thoughts on that front?
Because, look, before Trump, people thought that I was, some conservative, black guy. Oh, you got a black conservative on CNN, and he's the only black person in prime time on a cable news network. How great! And I'm like, okay, that's not true. And then after Trump, it's like, oh, you're a certain left-leaning liberal. It's because people believe, number one, what reconfirms their own beliefs, but number two, they believe the picture that other people paint of me. And if you disagree with any sort of narrative on any sort of side, ideologically or as it has to deal with ethnicity or race, then all of a sudden you become something other than what they want you to be. So my job as a journalist is to tell the truth. So if I'm telling the truth and it doesn't fit your particular narrative or the truth is not on your side, then of course someone from a conservative or the Trump administration is going to say he's a lefty liberal. You can't believe anything he says. He's wrong, and that's how you paint me. Because the truth wasn't listen, the last administration had a tough time telling the truth. Yeah. My job is to tell the truth. They were, they had truth. I don't know what you call it. Truth. They were allergic. They were truth allergic, truth phobic.
They want to re-engineer the truth.
Anytime you pointed that out, the criticism, in order to undercut your credibility, is to say that you were lying and that you were a lefty, right? And so, my job is to tell the truth. So people paint me as this. I'm not. I'm an independent. I'm a registered independent. I don't really like or believe in political parties. I know that's how our system works. I'm not necessarily sure it is the best thing for us, because a lot of people get left out of the mix and who should be in the political mix just because of the way we elect, especially presidents in this country, and where we start out. We start out, honestly, like in the whitest places in the country, and we're trying to elect America's. Look at the diversity. There's diversity all around us. And so, I think that's why I'm not crazy about political parties, but I'm not a lefty and I'm not a righty. I'm an American. I think most people are that way. I think there's a radical middle who just want things to get done and to stop with all of the fringes of ideology, because it's really holding us back. Look what's happening in Washington now. We have
stratified.
Yeah. Listen, of course, everyone should be concerned about money, but we need infrastructure, and not just roads and bridges. We need broadband. We need that to help educate people who are in places that don't have broadband, in rural areas. So many times people vote against their own interests because they don't understand things, because they're being led astray by co-opted by politicians who are taking advantage of their lack of knowledge. So yeah.
Are there things on the liberal side that you find abhorrent as well?
I think yes. I think that I'm not saying abhorrent. Quite honestly, and I've said this on the air, I think that the only party that's operating in reality right now is the Democratic Party. I'm not a Democrat, but that's the only party operating in reality. And so it's up to them to save the democracy and the republic. And quite honestly, I don't know if they see the urgency in it. They're not living up to it. They're not doing a good job. My criticism of the Democratic Party would be to get your ass in gear and to understand that our democracy is not only there's not only a threat happening to our democracy, it is in peril. We are at the precipice of going over a ledge and not being able to come back. Minority rule. This country is governed by a small fringe of people right now, a small group of people right now, who are keeping the majority of the country, what most people want in this country, which is unity. They want us to be number one. They want us to excel. They want us to have great infrastructure. They want us to have great business. They want us to have a great economy. And they're being restricted in their thinking and what they do, because they're being co-opted by politicians who just want to stay in power. So I think the Democrats need to get their ass in gear. The Republican Party needs to look in the mirror and get a reality check. Their ideas are not working, so that's why they're trying to restrict voting and keeping people from the polling places around the country.
A little scary.
It's a little scary. But also right now, what's happening in the country, the fringes of both parties need to realize that they don't run the party. They don't run the parties. And they're killing it for the rest of us.
Makes sense.
It's awful. Yeah.
Let's move to a more personal and potentially harder topic. You are a gay black man who's reached the pinnacle of the news reporting industry. Who's reached the pinnacle of the news reporting industry.
You think so?
I think so.
That's my phone, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
What adversity have you faced in getting here? What are your learnings, and how can we do better as a society?
I was looking for a tissue. Sorry. Well, one thing. Let me just go back to something real quick and then I will talk to you about the adversity. But the reason I did this is because I met this guy at a convention earlier, and he is a conservative from Alabama, and he said. As I shared with you during our visit, I was especially thankful to have the chance to meet with you and thank you very much, and to get to know you a bit. We all live in this filtered media world where oftentimes we are told to expect one thing, but in reality, things are much different. As a conservative Southerner, I am perhaps uniquely hamstrung, but equally appreciative of the good and thoughtful people, and I now know that is who you are. Thank you for what you do thank you for what you do and keep being real. So he thought that I was, because he watches Fox News all the time and what have you. So I had to, I had this thing that I went to where it was different people, different
propaganda.
Yeah, and so he thought that I was the caricature that Sean Hannity or Tucker Carlson or whomever that they spread about me, and I'm none of that. And so he was shocked. I act like the whole time I was like, okay, your wife is over there, go hang out with her. And he's like, I can't believe that you are not the person on television. Like, talk to me more about this. And he goes, you actually have great ideas. And I said, yeah, that's because you're sitting there watching the same thing, reaffirming your beliefs, and in a way, I think changing the structure of his brain. It was just weird. Like he was it was like almost like therapy. I felt like his therapist. But anyway, go on. You said, what are the unique challenges?
So like, you've achieved so much.
That's one of the unique challenges, is that people believe stereotypes. People believe that I'm an overnight sensation, that I got my job because of affirmative action, and actually it was the opposite. It took me years to convince people that as a black man and as a gay man, I kept that closeted for a while, that I could actually carry a show by myself and in prime time. And once I started doing it and people started tuning in and engaging and the ratings were good and so on and so forth, it's like, wow, well, let's not just give this guy 1 hour, let's give him 2 hours. So not only am I the only black person in prime time on cable news, my friend Joy, who I love, is in early prime and, at 7 o'clock on MSNBC, but I'm the only person who has 2 hours and 2 successful hours in cable on television, and then also doing two successful podcasts. Because I work my ass off and because I'm authentic. You may not like it, but many times the people who don't like it are the people who tune in the most.
Right.
Because they either hate watch or they're like, oh, I hate that. Let me see what he has to say or what have you. But it's also because I'm the same person on television as I am off television. And so I'm not faking it. I'm not doing things just to get clicks or to get ratings. If I make a mistake or if I go too far, then that's the same thing in my life. I'll say, oh, Harry, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say that. I'm so sorry. I'll do that on television. Or, my friend Anna Navarro, who I went to the Ricky Martin concert with last night, we have fights on TV. I'm like, Anna, you are totally wrong. And then people, oh my gosh, I can't believe you leave Anna alone. Or are you hating? I'm like, no, get out of family business. Anna and I are best friends. We go to each other's homes. We hang out together. But we can have an argument. I argue with my mother. It doesn't mean that I hate her. I love her. That's how it's being a human being. So I'm a human being on and off television. What you see is what you get in all places, wherever I am.
But have you?
So the unique challenges. The unique challenges is that people think differently of me. There are different standards for me. There are different expectations. Black people expect me to be the representative for all black people. Gay people expect me to be the representative for all gay people. White people are not used to seeing me in a platform or having the platform and the voice that I have, or being able to state my point of view and sometimes opinions. It's okay for other people to be able to state their opinions. It's fine. It's fine for, what was his name? Bill O'Reilly to be able to say it, or even a white woman or whatever, because you're used to seeing them in that position. But when I say something that may be the exact same thing, how dare he say it? So it's different for me. People aren't used to that. And they have become or becoming used to it. But often the criticism, to me, if you actually look into the criticism and think about it and look at the comments, and so it's often based in racism and homophobia. And it's not that hard to figure out. The President of the United States, the former President of the United States, calling me the dumbest man on television when I'm the only black man on cable at night in prime time, says something. What is he saying? That black man is dumb. That's a racial stereotype. When people talk to me about, when people criticize me for things that I say about the LGBTQ community on television, look at the comments. It's always some gross, even if it has nothing to do with that, some sort of gross sexual thing. Like me being gay, it's like, why is he taking people inside of his bedroom? I'm not. I'm sharing a picture of Tim and I at a concert. Don't you go to the concert with your wife?
Of course, 100%.
Does that have anything to do with what you do in the bedroom?
Hopefully.
Okay. Maybe later. Yeah. Maybe Ricky gets you all. Yeah. She's like, oh my God, I love Ricky. Enrique. So that's good for you. That was a good answer. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So I have to deal with that and deal with people thinking, number one, black men are more aggressive. All those stereotypes that you have to deal with, are angry, the angry black man, all of those things. So yeah, it's different for me.
It's different.
Yeah.
But you've gotten through it.
I've gotten through it. Do you know why? From the first thing that you answer, I don't really give a shit. I don't read the comments. I don't read whatever. I don't care what you think about me. I know what I think about me. And I care about what I think about me, what Tim thinks about me, and what my mother thinks about me. And then my boss too, so. Hi, Jeff. Maybe he's here. But that's it. Everything else.
So I have two taking it in a slightly different direction.
Yes.
Your career has spanned decades. You've
Yes.
reported on so many things. You know,
Saying I'm old?
Well, no, you look good.
Yeah, thank you.
You look good. You know, you've won awards, Edward R. Murrow Award for the DC Snipers. You won an Emmy for real estate in Chicagoland.
An Emmy recently, too, for coverage of COVID.
For coverage of COVID.
Yeah, for our breaking news coverage.
When you think elections, natural disasters, you've hosted a presidential debate. You've had some of the most emotional and memorable stories.
Yeah.
What of these things, when you think back on your career, have really sort of sunk in where it wasn't just reporting, it was actually super meaningful to you?
Oh, well, all of it is meaningful. You know, sometimes it's, you know, I'll sit here and I'm like, I can't believe people actually showed up to come see me. I remember doing two things. One is, you know, I can always relate to the stories when I'm there at the scene. That's always very emotional in the moment. I realized, you realize the impact of, some things you don't realize the impact until they're over. I realized the impact of COVID as I was covering it. I realized the impact of George Floyd and the protests and some of the rioting around the country. I realized in the you know, people being gassed in the White House and all of that. I realized that in the moment. And it was kind of an out-of-body experience doing it. Some of it, because it was so urgent and breaking, I actually did from my home studio, which was weird, sitting in my home in this little makeshift studio built in the backyard of the pool house, and I'm like covering these big world breaking news. And I didn't have that big CNN structure around me where, you know, it's like, oh, your IFB cable's coming out, whatever, and there's always someone there to fix it and tweak the lighting and whatever it is. And I'm sitting at home going, how does it look? Is it, and you know, so that was weird. The other thing is that I have to catch myself sometimes because I'm sitting there and I'm this little kid from Louisiana who was gay, right, and black, and they're like, you know, and debating the presidential debate, moderator, Don Lemon, and I'm like, holy shit, that's me, right? And then, you know, the president of the United States, Joe Biden, and then he walks on, and it's me, like, I'm like, oh shit, I've got to ask the questions of the president. And I can only think about
Amazing.
My mom sitting there at the edge of her bed like, holy shit, that's my son. So I don't really care about anybody else. I just don't want to screw up. I want to make her proud so that when she's on Facebook or she sees her friends that they're like, wow, Don is interviewing the president of the United States, that I can make her proud that don't fuck that up.
That's amazing. You didn't
sorry, I didn't expect to do that. No. So that's it.
All right, so we're here at Adweek, and we have to talk about Adweek stuff, brands.
Oh, geez.
Have to switch topics. I got criticized last year when I did this. You're like, you didn't talk about anything for our industry.
Yeah.
For CMOs.
Well, what about you?
For me, I don't know.
As I blow my nose, you have a big announcement. I'm like, wait a minute. Should I be interviewing you?
No. We announced this morning in the Wall Street Journal that we bought Stitcher Ads.
Congratulations.
So that for us.
I don't know what that means, but congratulations. And it sounds like a lot of money, but
I feel very cash poor.
If I have to report on it, I will.
But I'm super excited.
Good or bad?
I think it's all good.
All right, good.
Lots of hope. Lots of hope for the future.
Congratulations, seriously.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. You know, brands are super conservative. They don't want to put their money on places like news because they're worried about being associated with things like black, gay, abortion.
Yeah.
This is challenging. Mm-hmm. You know, we have, as a company, Cargo as a company, is believe that great editorial and journalism is at a cornerstone of our society. I think it's important for you as somebody who creates and leads that industry to sort of share your thoughts on how journalism needs to be supported by brands and advertisers and CMOs as sort of a need and a good, not only beyond the commerce of their business. And I wanted to get your thoughts, you know, sitting there and leading this industry, you know, what are your thoughts on sort of what I call sort of brand censorship of the news media?
What do you mean?
So brands basically decide, they work with third-party companies, and they block running on the stories that you report on.
Yeah,
because they think it's they don't like to be around black, gay, abortion, Trump.
I get it. Okay, I get it. So I remember when I did, years ago, I did a special on the N-word, which people loved. Like social media went crazy, everybody was discussing it or whatever. And then it was, I think, I don't want to speak out of school. I think it was tough to get advertisers on board because it was
Very
a special about the N-word. And I actually used the N-word. And we did the history of the N-word. We talked about it, whatever. So I think that number one, it's short-sighted because that's when people actually tune in. That's when people lean in.
Right, that's where the ratings are.
Right, that's where the ratings are. If you want eyeballs. But I think that brands need to support journalism. We are one of the only. My job is protected by the First Amendment, and so everyone should be supportive of that. Brands should be supportive of that, and also supportive of free speech and freedom of expression, because brands want fans. You want people to buy your product, but you also want people who are fans of your product, right? That's why I always tell people I'm a Delta whatever, because I love Delta Airlines because they're good to me. Now, I don't get to fly them that much anymore, but every time someone says, I'm like, Delta. And they say, where do you want to go? We're going to pay Delta, because they're good to me, right? And so I think that if you want fans, then you lean into the culture, you support this. It's not supposed to be a business, but you support journalism, because journalism that's the only thing that's going to save the republic, is by being the industry that's able to, the institution, I should say, that tells the truth, keeps the electorate informed, and also can actually change a narrative. I think that you need to be able to you should support that, because it's only good for your brand. And especially now with the way that culture is changing, and if you don't believe in this whole thing, I don't believe in cancel culture, I believe in accountability culture. If you don't believe in that, then the best way to not believe in it is to be bold and to support the institution of journalism, because that is the only one that is protected. Even what you do is not protected by the First Amendment. Mine is. And so we should respect that. If you respect the Constitution and you respect what this country was built on and what it's about, then you need to support the institution, not business, not industry, the institution of journalism. That can only be good for all of us, and especially for business.
I think that's all she wrote, people. So thank you so much.
That's it?
That's it. Thanks for everything.